Hey, it's Don here from the board. I'm just a little bit. I know I'm currently just talking to myself because there's nobody here. Um, Maybe, supposedly, there's three concurrent viewers. I don't know who these three concurrent viewers are going to be. I'm just looking at my control panel over the side here, and the new YouTube streaming system is a little bit alien to me. So that's why I'm trying to figure out what is going on. Um, but anyway, we're live. I think YouTube says we're live. Um, so welcome. Hi. Hey, Daniel. It looks like it's working. Fantastic. Thank you very much for coming along and checking things out. Um, so today, uh, I thought I'd build a keyboard. Um, Not G10. Thank you very much. There we go. Uh, you guys obviously probably saw my message from the episode that I didn't record podcast-wise this week. I was just a bit caught up with a lot of events at work, and I just wasn't really feeling it. And I need a bit of downtime. There's been a lot of changes at work, reporting lines, organizational change, ramp up of activity for the customer and things like that. And so I kind of was just like, I need a bit of a chill out. However, in compensation for that, today my wife and daughter have actually gone out the door to a smocking meetup. So it's kind of left me to my own devices where I've had the time that I can actually do a live stream. I haven't done a live stream in ages, so I do want to apologize to everybody that I haven't been able to do any live streams, but now we are here. So today is it's the 23rd of November, and next week is actually going to be the Sydney 2019 Keyboard Meetup. For a lot of people who have been listening to the podcast and have been watching stuff here, I kind of have a collection of keyboards that I take to meetups which just have stock switches in them. They're not modded, and rather than it being a massive switch tester that's just one single switch and trying to figure if that switch is for you or not, I decided why not actually build keyboards with the same switch and people can actually have a bit of a play. And that's where the switch library concept came to be. So the tub is over there and there's a number of keyboards in it. Today I want to just put another one of those together, and if you excuse my mug of tea, I have a lot of switches that I can use to put into the kit. I have a box of switches, and that's my box of switches. So I've got stuff that I haven't put into keyboards yet, and I want to get, I suppose, you guys watching today, your feel on which one I should put in. I've got some bags which are small leftovers from other ones that I've already used, so obviously we won't be going with those. But I've got Otomu Skies, I've got Box Pale Blues, I've got pretty bog standard Box Browns, I've got Hardcore Violets, Zeal V2s, Arctos switches, what else have I got in here that I haven't used? I've got Box Reds, Box Yellows, Speed Silvers, Royals have already been used, those have been used. Yeah, so they're what I've got at the moment. I've got Box Whites, but I'm not sure if I've used Box Whites already in one of those keyboards. So I do actually have some other switches. They're in the bedroom where the rest of my keyboard junk lives, but I haven't reviewed them, so I didn't really want to sort of play with those and put them into a keyboard yet. So for the small number of people who are actually lurking here, checking out the stream today, what should I put into a 60% today for meetup next week? Give it to me. Nobody has any opinions? Nobody's responding? I'll just sit here and drink drink some more tea. Otherwise, if you don't want me to actually put a keyboard together, that's cool. We can sit and chat, or I can do something else if there's something else that you guys want to see me do. There's not much response happening. Then I will, I guess, move forward with putting a keyboard together. That said, screws. That's a very, very important thing to have, and I don't know what I've done with those screws, but I'm sure I have screws that will fit this. I'll just have to go dig them out somewhere. Sure thing, Daniel. Switches actually get quite heavy. So we've got Atomu Skies, Box Pale Blues, got Zeal V2s, and I've got Arctos Light, and I've got Arctos Heavies. There's some Harco Violets, got Kailh Box Browns. I think these are the Speed Silvers, the Kailh Speed Silvers. I've got Box Yellows, Box Whites, Box Reds. That's it. While you guys are sort of mulling over that, I actually don't know what the delay is at the moment. It is November, which means Movember. I do have the giveaway, which is running. You can check out the video in the playlist for the link to the Gleam. There's no mandatory donation required to my Movember campaign, but of course it would be appreciated if you wanted to support my campaign. Just have to go through the typical Gleam motions, and then you'll be able to be in the chance to win a Cooler Master RGB extra large desk mat, which there's also a video review on that as well. So the Pale Blues. Alright, well, since nobody else is responding, you get to be the lucky decider. We're going to go with the Kailh Box Pale Blues, which are a thick click bar. Is that right? Or is it the thin click bar but heavy? Box Jades are the equivalent of Box Whites but with the heavier click bar. So these is same spring weight as the Box Whites with the thin click bar. Yeah. That's right. Okay, so just for a microphone test. That's what they sound like. Alright, yeah, let's go and put this away on the side. Dump that on the floor. Okay. This is just a really cheap PCB. I bought a bunch of these ages ago off Taobao, and since then my Taobao account is munted because of some miscommunications between myself and my wife. Completely my fault, not my wife's fault, but we ended up having a accidental chargeback to Taobao, and so my account is munted now. I can't buy any more from Taobao because I can't reverse the chargeback. The bank won't do anything about it because they say that the vendor has to make the claim that it was incorrect, and then that dispute would come back to us, and then we would confirm or, deny that. But Tabo refused to do anything because they believe it's on our side that we have to fix. So it's kind of a bit of a stalemate. So GG. It's a steel plate. It's got some bends in it, but you know what? It's fixable. It's manageable. A little bit warped and badly cut, but it'll be okay. Rightio. I hate bottom row because weird ass amounts of config on bottom row suck, and I always struggle on what the pattern is, but we're just going to put in the corners first at least, or at least switches that we know are good, and then we can worry about the bottom row alignment later on. Now I do use a TS80 soldering iron, which is over here at the moment. It's a good quality iron. I have no issues with it. Works pretty well for me. And I'm using leaded solder, which is a 60-40 blend. Pretty bog standard. Nothing too crash hot about it. It's from a local electronics supply chain vendor, JCar. So if you're Australian, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's very much personal preference what you want to use. I don't have any problems with using leaded. I'm not making anything commercially, so the RoHS, reduction of hazardous substances, kind of regulations and specs aren't really too much of an issue for me. So it's on my 3D printed soldering iron spool, and as you can see, it's just a 60-40 lead tin lead combination. I've had this spool now for a number of years. It's a 1 kilo spool, and I still got a good amount left on it. Okay, so iron. I actually had it on before because I was just doing a video, which should be coming out very shortly. So let's just warm this back up. This has the chisel tip on it, which is what came with the TS80, and I'm too much of a cheapskate to actually buy a rounded tip, which is what I used to use on the TS100. Still got the TS100, but the 80 is actually quite nice to work with. It's quite comfortable. So I thought, well, you know what? Why not just keep using it? Low voltage. What does that even mean? Why are you flashing low voltage at me? Hey. Why are you saying low voltage? You're getting plenty of volts. Alright, just reset. How is everybody today? Hopefully you're having a good day. And yeah, you're not getting too bogged down in life and everything else, and you can just chill out, watch some building. Yeah. Supposedly my bit rate is pretty poor, so you'll have to tell me if there's any issues that's going on in regards to the stream and the stream quality. So, do you use that with leaded solder? Yeah, I use leaded solder. I don't like unleaded solder. Unleaded solder is a real pain in the backside to work with, so leaded solder is my preference. Rightio. Typically I like to work from my left hand side to my right, and that way I'm less likely to burn myself on my right hand. If I burn myself on the left hand, I can deal with it, only because I'm right-handed, and it would be a major inconvenience if I was incapacitated on my right hand. So I'm just doing a couple of switches to sort of tack the PCB and the switches and the plate into place, and then I'll go back and fill in the rest of the actual switch positions and then solder them in. And that's my usual sort of method. Obviously everybody can work differently however they like, but that's just the way that I prefer to solder. and that one was not seated all the way in. So it's what happens when you autopilot. Now I've got to go and get the solder sucker out. And of course the nozzle, and it's jammed. There we go. Now I get to desolder a joint. I was wondering why the pins felt a little bit low. There we go. All those chunky bits coming out. Yeah, there we go. So it needs to be all the way in. It's better. Okay. Much better. Make sure that's sitting flat. It is. And then I can do this one too. Rightio. Gonna have to clean up my solder sucker a bit because I can hear it rattling. Now I've put those switches in. I'm going to go back in and I'm going to snap in the remainder of these switches. Yeah. Unless if people start asking questions and things like that, I don't really have terribly much on the top of my head to talk about, but I don't mind being silent. It's just you guys will get to watch a very silent stream. These plates are quite rough, and so the switches don't snap in very cleanly sometimes, which is quite annoying. Make sure the pins are all the way in. Come on. There we go. I think it's also just because with the Kailh switches, the stem body is a lot on the housing, on the bottom of the housing. It's also a lot bigger than, say, the cherry types. So it typically is a tighter fit on the actual holes on the PCB. So you got to get the angle right, otherwise they get jammed, which is what's happening here. Ooh, that didn't sound good. Yep, can tell straight away. Bent that pin. There we go. Gonna get real sore thumbs by the end of this. Hey, 4 concurrent viewers. Amazing. Hello, latest lurker. How are you today? Welcome to today's build stream, where Daniel has decided for us that we're going to be putting in some Box Pale Blues into this Taobao 60% kit for next week's Sydney keyboard meetup. Now, I need to be in this secondary position because I don't believe the keycaps I will be putting in this eventually are offsets. Snap! So, yeah, this week, you know, we were just chatting in the Australian Mechanical Keyboard Discord, and somebody had, you know, didn't realize that Kailh Box switches actually have an IP rating. And then, you know, we went through the whole IP rating concept and whatnot, and the construction of box switches in a very lightweight fashion. It's always amazing to think about how much engineering can go behind something so small and simple and relatively mundane as like a keyboard switch. A lot of people may not realize it until they get further into the hobby, and they just take it as accepted that, you know, it's a switch and it works, and you just all it does is one thing, and it doesn't have a lot of other properties. I'm just going to adjust the angle of that, maybe. So, you know, what kinds of things do you think people might not be aware of in regards to mechanical keyboards? I suppose the gaming industry these days tout 50 million keystrokes, or 60 million, or 80 million keystrokes as one of the major selling points. But what are the other things that mechanical keyboards, I suppose, inherently have as a property that people aren't aware of? Or is it something that it doesn't have to be mechanical, and rubber dome keyboards could be built that way too, but we're just a lot more aware of it because it's something that we put into consideration for mechanical keyboards? Possibly the ergonomics factor? Oh, you know, it's been so long since I've built a keyboard that I've kind of realized I haven't put the stabilizers in. You know what? It's okay. It's not going to be a board that's designed for functionality anyway. It's just for switch testing. So, no stabilize. That'll be really entertaining, because people are going to be like, these keys are so wobbly and so mushy, and yeah, that's right. No stabilizers. Fail on my behalf. You can tell how much I'm thinking, right? I'm just autopiloting, snapping switches in and soldering, and yeah. That said, I could just desolder those 4 switches I put in, take the whole thing off, and then try and line them all back up again through the PCB. Should I do that? Should I? Thoughts? Opinions? It's not that I don't have stabilizers. I've got them in a sack somewhere over there. I just completely forgot about putting them in. Oh. Crikey. Oh. Come on, people, talk to me. Okay. Stabilizers go there, so that must be on that one. Universal plates are annoying. Oh, hey, Taylor. Good to see you. How's it going? It must be pretty late on a Friday night for you. Oh. Winner? What winner? This board's not getting given away. This is just a switch testing board for the meetup. It's not a prize or anything. It's just part of the switch library. There's no giveaway with this board. At least that wasn't my intention. Am I must be magically giving away this board without realizing it. What the? Wadu? Wow. Okay. That cut is a curvature going up. See how this is bent over here? That's actually not even letting the switch fit in. Quality manufacturing right there. So if you're thinking about buying switches and kits, just be aware of that you might need to get a bit physical to make things work. There we go. Problem solved. Just required a bit of violence. Oh, it's only 7:30. Oh, that's good. How are you doing? How's River doing? How's your sorry, I've forgotten what your Rachel, isn't it? Is it Rachel? Am I putting in stabilizers afterwards? I can't put in stabilizers without desoldering. So the mishap that happened was that I forgot about stabilizers and I already put in the corner ones. No. Let's see if I can desolder it, because the hardest part I think is really just getting switches through the plate. So I'll be good. I'll be good. I'll behave. Wake up. Wake up. Let's desolder those switches. Hello, Noved, Novidi, I think, Noved. I don't know how you want to pronounce it. Welcome to the stream. I do not have plate mount stabilizers. I'm not a fan of them. So, yeah, it's not something that I typically have in my stock of goods. It's alright. It's quick to desolder only a couple of switches, in theory. find where they are. Okay, that should be the 4 that I thought I put in. Shake out any loose bits. Just put that there for the moment. There we go. Okay. Put in some stabilizers. Yes, question. I'm going to be building my first keyboard soon. Curious, I'm attempting to install pink LEDs as well. How would you be able to control the brightness? So it depends on what keyboard or PCB that you have. Some of them will not have a PWM control on it. So you're actually not going to be able to control the brightness on them. That's the issue at hand. These are screw in, but they don't have screws. So that's interesting. Why do I have those and no screws with them? There must be some loose screws floating around somewhere. Where are just some bog standard split pins? There we go. I got so much random bits and pieces. A DZ60 PCB. I'm not actually super familiar with the DZ60. Does anybody else know if the DZ60 has inbuilt PWM? What? Okay, so this is really weird because some of these are snap-ins and some of these are screw-ins. Why is this a half and half? You can tell I'm doing real well here, right? I don't really want to be using Hey look, I do have some plate mounts. These are also screw-ins. Why do I have... So there's some plate mounts. Hey look, I have some more plate mounts. I didn't have to desolder after all. I found a bag of screws. Good times. Well, at a minimum, you're going to have underglow. It's just that if the PCB and the programming on it enables you to have controllable brightness, then yeah, that'll be software controlled. It generally isn't going to be hardware controlled. So if the DZ60 has that, you should be able to find it on like a DZ60 product description page, right? Surely? Someone want to confirm that for Navid? There you go. So Taylor believes that that's the case. But I think that's probably a Googleable question, or at least ask on Discord or on Reddit should be able to give you that kind of answer. Now, I've not really played with plate mounts. Do they just snap in? I just shove them in, don't I? Yeah, I think I just do. So, but I have to do that before the switches? No, wait. Yes. So confused. I can just do that, can't I? See, the cutout on these don't support. The cutout doesn't support it. It's too big. Ah, I hate switch pins because they're so bloody sharp. I am doing super well today with this whole fiasco. I think this packet might be snaps. Whoa! Okay. Is that like spare wires? Is there 2 sets in here? No. Alright. But you know what? That's okay. We're here amongst friends and chilling out and having a good time. So I must not get too exasperated. Right? Okay. There we go. So that's one. This just means I need to go and buy more PCB mount stabilizers. That said, the episode the other week when I talked about those colored stabilizers that C3 whatever were selling through the key company, or the key company at least was stocking them. I think they're pretty cool, though it's always a bit of a waste in a context for colored switches and housings and all that kind of stuff, because it's always covered up. I get it, it's cool, it's funky, but it's also a little bit of a waste just because you just don't get to see them. Now yes, I am not clipping these stabilizers. Everything is stock. Stock. So if they're mushy, that's just because you need to have a true appreciation of stock before you start modding. Too many people get into the you have to do this, you have to do that, otherwise, you know, it's not going to feel nice. Well, you can't appreciate what nice is if you don't feel what not nice is, right? At least that's the philosophy that I'm running off here. I think that should be there. Hello Hex, welcome to today's live stream where I am attempting to build this 60% keyboard with as few mistakes as possible, which I've already made 2 mistakes. So I hope you enjoy the rest of today's stream and count along with the others. It's not quite a drinking game, because if you plan on getting drunk watching how many mistakes I make, you probably won't get very far. Unless, of course, you don't drink very much. I also seem to be short a wire. So the kit seems to have given me 2 long wires. I'll just have to pinch it from another kit rather than another 2U wire. So the guys are still talking about DZ60 QMK layouts, which is cool. Spike says, is it possible to mod the stabilizers at a later date? When you say mod the stabilizers, do you mean to trim them, as in to get rid of the mushiness? If so, not really. Once the plate goes into place for PCB mount stabilizers, you're not going to be able to get to them without desoldering the whole lot. And if you end up actually pulling the stem out through the stabilizer housing, that's just bad all round. So if you do want to do any stabilizer related modifications, you kind of need to do it now at this stage, before you do anything else. It's just not feasible at any other point in time. Am I going to go and rob another kit? Because I honestly don't know what's going on with my stabilizer collection here. Just got all sorts of odds and ends and whatnot. Hijacking kits left, right, and center. You know what? It's right shift. Right shift is going to be the redhead stepchild of stabilizers today, and right shift is not going to get a stabilizer. So we're just going to have to deal with them. Nova asks, what tool would be able to get switches out when soldered? Well, you need a desoldering tool or a desoldering sucker. So I've got, you might have just seen before when I was desoldering those switches I'd put in, I use this, which is the a Edson solder pult. This is the SS350 Challenger. It's a metal barrel. It's electrostatic discharge protected. I just find it a little bit more rugged and durable by comparison to the plastic ones. I've had a plastic one, I've got a plastic one, and it's pretty horrible. So I decided to invest in a decent one, which is the solder pult that I bought. You can also get desoldering guns and the alike, which, you know, that's a investment because they're expensive. But if you're going to do a lot of desoldering, and I don't do a lot because I don't break down a lot of boards and I don't swap out switches a lot. It's only if I make catastrophic mistakes or if it's for somebody else by request, like a commission, or I'm helping somebody in the community, then I'll desolder a whole board. But you got to go slow, otherwise you're going to get massive thumbs from the actual crank. Every time I desolder a full board, I get like a sore thumb for 2 days afterwards because of that. Yeah. So let's tack in those corner ones again so that this doesn't shift around, and then I can worry about the bottom row. I hate bottom row configs, I really do. I understand why we have variable bottom rows, because people want to be able to customize, but for me, I find them an annoyance because I'm a pretty standard kind of guy. I don't really need you know, wacky layouts, so it always makes it a challenge for me because I never remember the right positions. Too many darn holes. Okay. There we go. There's another one. I'll do that one. That'll stabilize it quite well. All right. Don't you have another PCB like this? You could pull the PCB from another case. I'm not sure what that was in reference to. Was that to me, Taylor? About something in particular? Oh, you mean for the actual switch positions? Yeah, in theory, I sure can. Then I'd have to take keycaps off, and then I'd have to take screws out, and that's just a laziness feature that I'm happy to profess that I'm lazy. I'm pretty sure it's going to be on the outer edges because these are consistent. So yeah, I think the spacebar one should be the middle position on these. Hey, how's it going, Jesse? So if any of you guys have any queries in regards to DIY keyboards and 3D printed accessories like fidget toys or dactyls, maniforms, switch openers and things like that, then throw your questions at Six Juices. How's the little one going today? Hopefully everything's all good in your household. Seems to be a lot of us with little ones lately, isn't it? Okay, yeah, there we go. Take a picture of this build so when you're done you can reference it next time. You know, that would actually be the smart thing to do, but where would I put that reference picture? And then I'd lose it, and then it's okay. I will bumble my way through for the entertainment of others or the exasperation of others when they you know, yell at the screen. It's kind of like football when it's like, oh my god, you just fumbled that play. Didn't you see he was open right there? Or it's where I'm like, where does the hole go into? And then people behind their screens are just like, I don't know, just cracking myself up here. Sleeping now, bedtime soon for the rest of you. Wow, I definitely remember those days. It's when you say, if the baby's down, I'm going to be down too, because it's the only time you're going to get any sleep. Rightio, this corner plate is very, very wobbly. Let's get that in. So I'm just, for you there, Six Juices, I'm just putting together this keyboard for the Sydney meetup that's happening next weekend, just to increase another keyboard for the Switch library, since I'll be lugging all those OEM boards that I've put together so people can have an idea of what stock switches and boards feel like. The thing that I tend to find over the last couple of years of attending meetups is that a lot of people have, no, I'm not going to call it unrealistic expectations, but the expectation and environment is skewed, because they'll turn up to a meetup and there'll be all these people who've been in the hobby for quite a while and they have fantastic customs, and that's kind of like the aspiration point, right? So they go along and they feel and they press and they type and, you know, they're like, oh wow, this is really amazing, and then they go and buy a board and they're like, why doesn't it feel like that? And it's because they don't understand that there's potentially a whole bunch of different things that have been done to the keyboard. So stabilizers lubed and clipped, switches that have been lubed, things that have been dampened and stuff like that. And so the concept of me putting together the Switch library is so that people actually do have the means to say, well, this is actually what stock feels like. Make a comparison to, you know, those high-end boards, those customs, and that's the gap, right? Expect your board to feel like this unless if you do X, Y, and Z. And it's also there for sound and whatnot. So here's just a sound sample without a case. It's quite clicky. I really like that. That sounds pretty good. And there we go. Alright, let's flip this sucker over. And time to solder it in. Okay, get the soldering iron. Bit of a jiggle and back up to temp. I really need a new brass, I think, at the moment, because this one is beat. It's pretty beat. I've used it for the last couple of years now, and my takeaway container with a hole cut in the lid is yeah, it's doing okay. Does the job. Should probably upgrade at some point, but you know, just being cheap and doing what you can with what you've got, right? So just before I actually started this live stream, I reviewed a product, and so the video for that will be coming out very soon, very shortly. And it was actually a soldering iron tip tester. Like, it measures temperature. And I just want to get you guys' thoughts on how important do you think it is on being able to measure and calibrate the temperature of your soldering iron tip. Any thoughts on that? No thoughts yet. So, you know, if you watch that video, which will come out later, obviously, what you'll discover then, and I'm happy to talk about on stream now, is that my iron is it doesn't display correctly to the actual temperature that the calibration supposedly sets. Okay, so we've got some responses that have started coming through now. So Spike says, not super important, as long as it's hot enough, it's okay. Taylor says, I've seen a few burnt PCB pads. That's normally when people use cheap soldering irons without temperature adjustment. So it's very valid because there's two sides to when we solder. There's solder to build, like what I'm doing now, and then there's soldering to desolder, right? To debuild. Deconstruct, debuild. I English good. It's probably more important to get the temperature right when you're desoldering than when you're soldering. When you're soldering, it's quick, right? Because as soon as the solder melts and flows enough and makes a good join, you lift and it cools. When you desolder, if it's not hot enough and you don't realize it, you end up applying a lot of heat, and it's transferring through the pin into the PCB and into the components. And this is more of a risk because if you have to reheat that joint a lot, then you run the risk of damage. Spike's asking what the stream delay is. I've actually got it set to no additional delay, so it's whatever the natural delay is. So maybe I should run an experiment. I think previously it used to be about 6 seconds, but it definitely looks longer than 6 seconds right now. So I'm going to start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. It's 17 seconds is the delay. So yeah, it's actually more important for desoldering than anything else, in my opinion, because sometimes people go, oh, I'm trying to get this switch out and I don't know what I'm not doing right. And then people go, are you running your iron hot enough? And often they'll be like, yeah, I'm running at X temperature. And it's like the solder sucker's not getting it out clean and this, that, and the other. And of course, there's multiple factors to that. If you have a really bad solder sucker or your technique with the sucker is really bad, then that will be part of the reason. But if you don't heat up the solder all the way through, then that's also really bad. So if the iron's hot enough to melt the solder, but it's just on the melting point, it takes a long time for the solder inside the joint and all the way through to be nice and liquid for the solder sucker to do its job. Whereas if you run it too hot, you run the risk of burning stuff as well. So you've got to make sure that you're in that right sort of temperature zone. Now people say that those glass surface mount diodes are quite indestructible. They are, but they're not impossible to break. I have actually seen people crack them with heat, trying to solder or desolder the diodes, and once again, it's just a matter of applying too much heat for too long a period. So yeah, that's why it's really important to at least have an understanding of how far off your irons could be. It was interesting because when I tested the TS80 at a couple of different points, the actual variation was also changing. It wasn't a constant, this is the gap between what was displayed on the iron and what the calibration tool was measuring. So it is a sliding scale by the look of it. It is some kind of percentage or ratio. You just have to be aware of it. So for me, now that I'm aware of it, if I'm being delicate about something temperature wise, then I'll know that I either have to adjust my temperature up or down for whatever the actual activity is that I'm doing. Okay. Now, other things that are kind of coming up. So, typically when I have opportunity to, I'll actually do a bunch of videos. So, if you see some stuff that's getting released in the next couple of weeks and the lighting is really bad, not that I'm saying today's lighting is necessarily any good, but I'm using the above camera ring now. There's some videos that I shot before I got that. So the lighting will be the old room lighting, which is why the camera quality and the video quality may be a bit different. I also have this kit which I was really interested to get to build as part of my tools collection for DIY making stuff for keyboards. But what was really funny was it didn't come with build instructions, which makes it really hard to build, right? And I ended up trying to find all over the place if I could get a copy of the build instructions, because typically you might find like a digital version online. No, I couldn't find squat. So I ended up finding the manufacturer's website, and they had a Discord, so I hopped on the Discord and I went in there and then I asked about it, and the mods didn't know it, so they pinged the actual designer of the product, and then after a couple of days they came on and then they said to me, yeah, there's no build instructions for it, which was quite entertaining. And I asked, oh, and they said, yeah, because it wasn't a successful product launch for them. So yeah, it's a backwards way of going about it. As somebody who's worked in the technical writing industry for engineering and engineering products, typically if you're going to have a product, right, you should have all your logistics support items by the way. Like, it should be available when you release something. So I would expect that you would develop a manual on how to put it together and build it before you release it. It's part of the product release. But no, they chose to release the product and then start developing the manual for it. But because it sold poorly, they just never got around to putting the manual together. So that's going to put a little bit of a dampener and delay in me actually assembling this item. I'll probably have a video of attempting to assemble it. It's probably going to be quite a long video. So yeah, you can check that out as well at some point. I actually, because Banggood supplied me that one too, and I had to tell them, by the way, there's actually no instructions on how to put this together, so it might be a while before the video review can be done on it. And they were like, oh, okay, well, please try and get it done as soon as you can. So Taylor's saying that he likes the ribbon mic. Well, thank you very much. I'm glad that you can hear a difference. I haven't actually had a lot of feedback from it. The only things were just what some of the people had said in the Slack, is that it sounded like I had a deeper voice with it. For those people who aren't familiar because they don't listen to the podcast, which is fine, I used to use a condenser microphone, and I've been wanting to get this ribbon mic. So it's a Rode NTR, because I have a mixer board that's got active phantom power in it, and I was kind of concerned about getting just a standard ribbon mic, because typically they're not active ribbon microphones, and if you put phantom power into it, it can blow up the mic and damage it. Whereas the Rode NTR is specifically designed to operate with phantom power, so there's no issue. And it was just one of those things, you know, I prefer the security of not being able to damage my equipment at the extra cost. And it's not a cheap microphone by any stretch. So I'd been sort of scrimping and saving and waiting, and lo and behold, on eBay somebody had one that they were trying to sell, unsuccessfully, mind you, because I've been watching the listings on a regular basis, and they dropped the price heaps. And I was like, oh yeah, and I sort of just thought, oh, you know, somebody else is probably going to snap that up. It didn't move. So I kept watching it, and then they dropped the price again, and then they also turned on make an offer. So I put in an offer, and they accepted the offer straight away. It wasn't even registered for extended warranty either, which was really amazing. And so I was like, well, do you actually still have the original invoice? Because for me to claim the warranty, I need to have a copy of the purchase. And they found it, they scanned it, and they sent it to me. And I was able to actually use that to register it. So now my lovely ribbon mic is got extended warranty as well. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Got it for less than half price, including shipping. So I'm very, very happy with that pickup. And that's what I'm using right now. So yeah, if you've never seen a ribbon mic, this is what it looks like from above. So the actual capsule is here, and it's very long. It's quite long compared to the circular condenser capsule. And the NTR itself actually has this screw on the top that you can actually lock it in, so when you transport it, it doesn't bump and jolt it to damage the ribbon. The ribbon itself in the NTR is really well designed, I think, from an engineering point, because it also has an internal shock mount designed with it. So I've got it mounted in a shock mount, and it has an internal shock mount, so it's double shock mounted. Okay, so we finished soldering this, and I am now going to... Okay, so the cable is plugged in up the top. So in theory, this should make it connect. There we go. So I can hear that. And let's bring up switch hitter. Oh, switch hitter, where art thou? Okay, there we go. Apologies. So I'm going to show my right hand monitor so you can see the craziness that is happening on the right hand monitor with what's going on with the stream. And let's try it. There we go. So we can see it is functioning quite well. Okay, so hey, Locke and Choice Lamb. Ha ha da. Yeah, it's very true. Taylor says re-record the typing test. Yes, probably we'll have to do something of that nature. Now, you'll notice that the Alt and Win keys didn't trigger, and it's because this PCB has function keys on that kind of space for some kind of layer type of activity, so we're not going to worry too much about the fact that they don't seem to be showing up. All right, so, and the caps lock LED indicator is working beautifully. Locke, you've caught a stream for once. Yeah, well, you managed to catch the stream towards the end of it too, since the majority of this board has been built. Now, I've got a case for it. Now I've got to go dig around and find some screws for it, but... Hey, Choice Lamb, are you going to the meetup next weekend? Just asking. This is gonna fit. There we go. In it goes. The case is warped. Look at that. Massive amount of bending on that. In theory, there would be feet for it, but I don't know where they are. I do actually have a whole bunch of M2 screws and things in a drawer, so that's what I'm rummaging around for right now. There we go. There's some M2 screws. These are really long ones because they're designed for standoffs. So we'll see if they're too long or not magnetic. Recording the typing test was actually quite fun. There were a lot of people said that I'd done it too long, so I shouldn't have sort of typed for that long. This is going to be annoying because these are not, yeah, they're not magnetic. Oi. How am I going to get these in? You got a big night day before? That's alright. No worries. Ah! No. Oh, son of a... Get out. There we go. I think these screws might be too long for it, but we'll see. Oh no, that worked. Cool. How is kind of like okay, right? It's sort of a casual way of saying good, okay, sure. But used in context, when you put, say, how da, is just like, yeah, all right, we'll get to it, kind of thing. At least that's sort of the context that I'm reading from what he's written as his comment. So, you know, that Chinese philosophy is just like, oh, you know, we'll get around to making it when we need to, when it's required, that type of attitude. It can also be like used in context of like obedient. So like if you're talking to a child or something like that and you want them to sit down, you'd be like, 好好的坐下去吧. You know, it's just like, come on, please sit down, right? I mean, it's very contextual use, I feel. But that said, I'm not very good with my Chinese. I think Choice Lamb's probably a bit better than I am, maybe. Although we're both just as ABC-ish as each other, kind of. No? I don't know, do we have any other Chinese speakers at the moment watching who can comment on the linguistics? Wiggle room. Okay, there we go. Not falling out. Screws aren't rattling. We've got stabilizers in. Success! Now we've got a Kailh Box Pale Blue keyboard, and as per the way that I've been labeling these, what I've done is I get a bit of tape and then stick it on the front. That way when people have a look at the keyboard, they can look at the front and they can see what is actually the switches in it. Just like that. And then I put one across the back. Yeah, it's the Wiha, the Xiaomi Wiha set. I actually want to get a Wow stick, but Banggood haven't been nice enough. I bought this one, by the way, with my own money, well before Banggood got on board and started sending me stuff. But I asked them for a Wow stick and they said no. But hey, you can only try, right? Okay. I do have some keycaps, but they're in another tub and it's not really that much of a deal to go put them on. So the build is done. Is there anything else that we should be thinking about, talking about, asking about? Yeah, bit of a short stream today, I guess, but I wanted to do something, you know, almost compensatory for the fact that I didn't have a podcast episode this week. Hopefully I'll be able to do something on Monday. My brother's actually asking me to help him out this week to clear out some junk because his apartment that he was renting out got absolutely trashed by some drogo renters that were in it. So I need to go help him clean out the junk and whatnot before they can get the repair people to go in and fix the place. Absolutely destroyed his apartment, unfortunately. So Spike says, what's the total cost of this build in AUD? Okay, so there's a couple of factors in here that we have to consider. And the first one is that I bought the PCB plate and case from Taobao quite cheap. Taobao sales are really interesting in the context that different vendors can sell the same stuff at different prices. And sometimes they'll sell a very limited amount of stock because it's just leftovers from runs, or they've somehow magically acquired it. Not that I'm claiming that it's fallen off the back of a truck like a 5-finger discount, but I found a vendor that had the kit. So we're talking about PCB, plate, case, and a USB cable. So I've got a whole bunch of these USB cables over there as well. And it was $35 Australian for the whole lot, including shipping to Australia, by the way. So that was really dirt cheap. And I bought their entire stock that I had. So I had all of these sitting around, and I've just been slowly building my way through some of these. The switches themselves, if you're looking at box switches, these Box Pale Blues are relatively cheap in terms of box switches in general. You're probably looking around, what, 40? Well, you're looking about $40-ish for 110. So because there's only 72 use in here, you're probably looking at around a $30 or so point. And the keycaps that I put on these, they're really cheap as well. They're $10 a set. So overall, building this from scratch, 35, about 70, probably close to $80 for this. But that's only because I've got, the Kailh switches in it. If you're using Gatoron switches are actually cheap by comparison. You can build a 60% keyboard of this type, this nature, of this level, for around the $50 to $60 mark if you pick up everything, with bargains and the alike. So that's kind of the frame that you could expect for an entry level keyboard of this nature. Now, if you went with more of an open source type of design situation, and you didn't want like a steel plate and or even plateless or even PCB plate, then you can probably even get it cheaper than that. And if you bought second-hand switches, because who has in the last 5 years ever put 50 million keystrokes through a switch, right? You're still going to get an amazing amount of use life out of second-hand switches. So if somebody's desoldered them and whatnot, and you buy second-hand switches, you can get them also really cheap too. So, and that's a great way of saving a bit of money here and there. Yeah, that's kind of what I would say you'd be looking at. Does that answer your question, Spike? Now, for those who are wondering what the heck I'm doing, I've just retinned the tip of this, and I've put excess on it, and I'm just letting it cool down because I want to protect the tip of the actual iron so it doesn't oxidize too badly and cause pitting and corroding, and then therefore poor heat transfer. So what I was talking about earlier was, where did I put it? Is this baby, the HB191 thermometer. So be on the lookout for the video of this shortly, and how it's used, how it performs. Is there a way to access Taobao as an English speaker? Yes. So Taobao does have, you can use like Google Translate, which is really easy to use because it'll translate the whole page for you. So if you look at the page in, say, Chrome and use the translate feature, it'll give you a rough idea of what you're actually looking at and the price. I actually used to use Superbuy. So, and when I say my Taobao account was stuffed up, I actually mean my Superbuy account. And I just think of them together as a paired service. So Superbuy is a purchase service. You pretty much, throw them the link, you pay Superbuy money, and there's a fee association to that. They go and purchase it on your behalf, and it goes to Superbuy's warehouse, and then they ship it to you. So I was able to buy a whole bunch of stuff and consolidate the shipping and save on shipping because it all came in one big package. Yeah, so you can use Superbuy, and there are other sort of, what do they call them? Proxy buying services out there for things like Superbuy. I mean, Taobao. Otherwise, you can also find a lot of these parts on AliExpress. They just charge a little bit more, and shipping on AliExpress doesn't give you as the same options for combined shipping as well, because if they're not the same vendor, typically you're not going to get that kind of thing. Yeah, cool. Any other questions? Anything else that people want to chat about or know about before I sort of start packing up and putting things away? Yeah. I still have a lot of switches that haven't gone into stuff. I've actually got a bunch of Q frequencies that Danny from Kibio donated to me. I just haven't got around to figuring them out either. And if I was, because unlike these, which are really easy and it's just a switch that goes into them, the Q frequency you actually have to put in like other components to make it work. And so I hadn't really decided if I wanted to build them as functionals or as just holders of switches. And because the Q frequency is a split design, it's not natively designed to be stuck together, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to super glue them together or tape them together so it would be in one board rather than halves coming apart, which is why I haven't got very far with using them to put keyboards together. It's just been, this year's been quite busy for me with family and weekends, you know, going to the grandparents, shopping, as well as work related stuff. So compared to last year when my daughter was a little bit younger and not as attention requiring, I think we're going to get to a point where children don't need a lot of attention, need a lot of attention, and then don't need a lot of attention, because once they start, you know, becoming more independent and can self-entertain, but then they start needing more attention because of schooling, and then being able to have support and role models and, you know, doing homework at home and stuff like that. And then of course once they get past that and they become once again more independent with, you know, their personalities, learning, friends and stuff like that, it falls off. So there's always this up and down cycle that I'm expecting. Yeah, but keyboards are constant, right? They're always going to be there, hopefully, maybe. Alrighty, we're sort of getting to the 1.5 hour mark, which actually for a live stream for me is pretty short. So unless if you guys have any requests and you want me to do any more builds or designs or talk about anything in particular, I've just had somebody on our Slack channel ask me to help them design a PCB, so that's pretty cool. So that's something that I'll be doing shortly. And you might have heard on the last episode or so when I'd done the GNG KB75 and talked about the stuffing up of that. George actually has pictures on Slack of the PCB that turned out, and it's just waiting for components. So once they come in and he puts it together, he gets to embark on the wonders of QMK. I'll try and support him as best I can so he can program that and make that a functional board and get some acrylic cut and stuff like that. There's definitely plenty of things floating around. In terms of the down bubble project, I have that functional metal prototype at work now, and I have a second one which is just in the other room. Haven't put it together because, you know, I don't need to use it at home. It's quite big for my very limited workspace here. What you are actually seeing here on the desk is 80% of my desk. So as much as I love the down bubble for home use, the practicalities of it is not, it's not. And I do have ideas for a next iteration of the down bubble. It's not going to be any cheaper. It'll be very out there. So I might have to start playing with the 3D printer again and making a functional prototype for that. Choice Lamb is asking, when is the Cheeseman free? Well, Kevin, my co-host, Sir Cheddar, has been really working quite hard on his career and enjoying life where he is in Southeast Asia and doing a lot of travel. So I actually cannot tell you when he's going to be free because I don't know. He definitely doesn't frequent our Slack as often. He just pops in every so often when he can, and that's just how it is, right? That's life. That's life. Sometimes you'll hit endgame, and then you're gone. Thanks for coming. Hope you had a good time. And others will be always in pursuit because endgame does not exist. Must say, putting it into the plastic case hasn't really made it sound any different compared to without the plastic case. So I did that earlier sound sample, so now that's in the case. I think it's actually got a bit more echo in it, but doesn't sound like it's majorly different once it's mounted in the case. Once you put caps on it, though, of course, it'll probably sound very different yet again. Alrighty. Yeah. What else? What else? Let's start putting some of this away if it's sufficiently cooled down. It feels cool enough. It's a Saturday. I don't even know what I'm doing for lunch. Probably leftovers. And then, yeah. Maybe I'll do a bit of QMK later, or I might start trying to figure out how to build that kit. Do I prefer steel or aluminium, or are you talking about this one? This one's steel. Maybe. It feels like steel. Magnet. It's heavy, so I think it's steel. I'm just thinking, do I have a magnet on my desk somewhere? I don't actually think I've got a magnet anywhere here to check it with, but I'm pretty sure it's steel. It doesn't have that look of aluminium to it. I'm just going to go with steel, is what it is. I need a bigger place. I've got so much stuff everywhere. I'm sure my wife would agree. And all of her sewing stuff. So overlocker, very expensive sewing machine. There's another sewing machine underneath. Snap buttons, patterns, reference books, and then on this side is a whole bunch of fabric, all her art stuff. We are amazing at hoarding. Does a strong magnet affect PCBs? If it's extremely strong, I'm sure it probably will affect a PCB because it's going to induce current in the traces. Whether it will affect the function, I'm going to say you're going to need a very strong magnet. The reason why, when you look at PCB design, and they talk about not having 90-degree turns, like 90-degree turns on your traces, is because the electromagnetic field on corners can build up charge. And if you build up charge, that's not good at all, because you can generate charge and it can arc and it can short and stuff like that, and it can also generate and build up heat. If you put a magnetic field across the traces, you can actually change resistance, and you can also cause electrical pulses, right? Yeah, so like that's that would disrupt, or at least, you know, potentially cause things like false switch triggering or short out your microcontroller and all that kind of stuff. And I'm saying potential because the likelihood is probably not very high unless if you have a stupidly strong magnet, which I certainly don't have. And yeah, I don't know, maybe sort of rare earth magnet level kind of stuff happening. Yeah, it definitely looks like steel. Definitely looks like steel. Alrighty, well, I think we're going to wrap it there. We've just hit the 1.5 hour mark, so pretty quick build from start to finish. Very easy, very simple, very affordable, very cheap, but functional, right? Good way if you want a beat up board that you can chuck into a bag and take it with you to class or travel and stuff like that, and super lightweight. Super lightweight. Rightio. Thank you everybody for checking out the stream. I really appreciate it. Love you always. Thanks very much for, of course, continuing to support us, me, here at the show, both YouTube, podcast. I do want to say thank you to our Patreon supporters because I'm really slack at doing that. I really should thank them more often. And Tuesday, supposedly, Patreon did this whole thing about thank you Patreon supporters, and I kind of missed that as well because I'm pretty slack about it. But I do appreciate all the support that we get here for the show, for the videos, for the podcasts, and everything else. So please make sure you check out the other videos in the playlist, especially for the competition to win that desk mat in support of Movember, and give you a kiss as I do, especially for my daughter at night. And yeah, we'll check it out if you can. Now, I used to just hit stop stream on OBS, which is what I use, and it would automatically stop the stream. But because YouTube now has different controls for live streaming, it has this big fat button which just says end stream. So I don't know what the delay is going to be like, and I'm going to just switch over to the right monitor so you can actually see what I'm talking about, right? And it has this fat button that's end stream. So I'm going to say bye, and when I see the preview lag screen that you can see here, to show something that's going to be happening, with my hand up here, then I'm going to hit that end stream. So once again, thanks for coming along, and I'll catch you next time. Yep, put my hand there so I can see it. "17 seconds is a long time."